Now there's going to be times when you're going to want to paint wet on wet and wet on dry, and these are things that you normally want to let dry. So for wet on wet, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip charging for a second. I'm going to go to the wet on dry and the glazing section. All I'm going to do here is put down some flat washes of color. So just a little bit of review. A flat wash, go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm going to let these things dry while I'm working on some other things above. And so then I'll be able to add some details to these as we go through here. Okay, so you can see I'm kind of losing my water. So if I just kind of go back in and add water and then go back and forth, I can get that kind of flat wash to up here. Okay, so I'm going to go here. And these don't all have to be the same color. I'm just making them there out of like making it go a little bit quicker. But you can do these any color that you want for the base. Okay, so I'm going to let these things dry as I go back up and work on the other sections. Let's go ahead and finish up our dry techniques. Wet on dry and glazing is what you would do to add details. So wet on dry would be layering. So you always start with a base of color. So like a background color, a general color of your object. And then you've got to put the texture and the detail on top. So you'd want to use a smaller brush, something that would be good for detail. So any of your smaller brushes are going to work. The red ones are going to be nice to add some details. So if I just wanted to add some linear elements to it, like let's say I've got some ridges to like a seashell or something, I can go in with my detail brush and I can layer those details on top of each other. I think I'm using too big of a brush. Let's go get something a little bit smaller here, like maybe my real small detail brush, and I can use this to layer whatever detail on top that I need. Okay, as long as the paint's not too runny and you've let the area dry really well, it should have nice crisp edges rather than the feathery technique that you get on the wet on wet. Now the glazing technique is something that you'll do primarily for cast shadows. This is a great way to layer imagery. So for like painting 2, you could layer one shape on top of another shape and still see the shape underneath of it coming through. Or in like drawing 2, if you need to make a cast shadow, this is a great color of putting a cast shadow on top of a background color. So what I would do here is I would make a wash. And in glazing, I'm asking you to do an analogous color and a complementary color. So the opposite of orange, once again, is blue, and I want to make a wash of blue. Okay, so it's got to be really watered down because I want to see the orange underneath of it. So if I just do a stripe of light blue on top of the orange, you can see that the colors aren't mixing. You can literally see the blue layered on top of the orange. Okay, so if I wanted to drop a shadow on top of something that was orange, I could do that. Of course, the shadow doesn't have to be blue. It could be any color that you see, but notice a lot of times shadows aren't necessarily gray. They are sometimes color, so you have to look very carefully to make sure what color it is. It also could be just you're making some sort of detail. And you just like this effect of layering. I love to work in layers. So feel free to do this layering technique, especially in the watercolor assignment for painting 2. I can use other colors and layer them on top of each other too. So here, maybe a little bit too light. Let's try something maybe a little bit darker. I can layer the red on top of the orange and still see the orange shining through. So those are your basic watercolor techniques. Listen to this as many times as you need to review them.